This podcast is sponsored by Camera Museum of London and Tang Cigars at 44 Museum Street, London. Welcome to a Fish Out of Water podcast. This is your host, Richard Lipman. Today we are interviewing Michael Sartain. This is part 1 of part 2 of this podcast. Okay, I'll get the
Can you hear me okay?
together here. Yes, Michael, thanks for joining me.
For sure.
Let me just put a pin on here. At some point in about 2 minutes, if that's all right, I'm going to get my coffee.
Okay. Do you have headphones? Because I can hear myself through your speakers.
Oh, okay. That's okay. It's a bit tricky. What I could do is switch my speakers off. One moment. Let me see if this works. Check the settings as well. How's this?
Let me see. Yeah, no, I can still hear every word I'm saying.
Oh, maybe it's because I've got original sound off. How's this one?
Check.
One,
No, I
two,
can't hear myself now. That's better.
Better. Okay.
Yep.
I'll get different setting.
You probably want to clean your lens too, because it looks like you have glare underneath.
Aha. I have background
Blurred? Yeah.
Yeah, background blur in the background.
Uh-huh.
All right. Let's start in a second. Just one moment. Michael Sartain, tell us a bit about your background. Where you're from. Bit of how you grew up, culturally and philosophically, educationally.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up in East Dallas. I went to Woodrow Wilson High School in East Dallas. Pretty much, very few of us spoke English there. It was mostly an ESL school, English second language. East Dallas is a lot of Hispanic people. And I played football and basketball, ran track, and did a bunch of other stuff. I was on the chess team and the debate team, and I did a bunch of stuff. But it wasn't because I was some super athlete. It was because we just didn't have any varsity players who, you have to pass your classes in order to do anything. So, I graduated from there. I went to UT Austin. This is the first place that I realized that I didn't learn shit in high school. My high school was just like, they did not care about teaching us at all. In fact, the superintendent of our school district, the DISD, in 97 was convicted of a felony for embezzlement. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's where all the money went, because our school was a shithole. So went to UT Austin. And then while I was at UT Austin, MCI WorldCom and Enron crashed. Like they went out of business. And then when they went out of business, the placement rate for my major, which is management information systems, plummeted to almost zero. So I went to try to go get a job at like GameStop or someplace like that, and Radio Shack, whatever. And I ended up working at a strip club as a DJ. And for 8 hours a day, it was totally as a joke. I did not think I was going to do this. It was just something where I was just a little bit desperate. Uh-huh. So I tried it out. And the funny thing is, because of that, and then the subsequent crash, it was a mini crash after 9/11. With the stock market, a bunch of my friends who got placement after college, they lost their jobs. I remember them coming to visit me at the strip club. So I worked there for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then they made me a manager. And I worked at 4 different strip clubs in Austin. And after 9/11, I went to a recruiter, Adobe Mall in Austin, Texas, on the south side of UT Austin, of the campus, and I applied to join the Marine Corps as an officer, and they told me they didn't have any spots, or it was going to take a while for me to get spots. So I went next door to the Air Force recruiter, and I said, I'd like to be an intel officer. And they said, for sure, we'll make you an intel officer. And I took the test, and they said, would you like to be a pilot? And I said, absolutely not. It's 11-year commitment. I was like, what about a navigator? I was like, well, I'd like to be an intel officer, but okay, I'll be a navigator. So it was a 7-year commitment. And so I did that.
Mm.
Then 7 years in the military. And while I was there, I kept working at a nightclub. Like part-time, I would go in and I would be MC at a couple of different nightclubs. As far as the philosophy that you're talking about, it was part military and then it was part like nightlife in, say, Atlanta, San Antonio, different cities that I lived in. And then in 2011, I got out and I moved to Las Vegas, and I've been here since August of 2011. And right now, I host three of the biggest bikini competitions in the world right now. Um, and I also host several different events. I host the Maxim parties, different places like that, and different charity events. And the whole point of it was to use the idea of events to build a social circle. And I did this, like I said, for about 14 years. And then at the end, or maybe since like just before COVID, I started a company where I wanted to teach some of the things that I was able to do over the last, 25 years, when understanding when it comes to networking, communication, leadership, and dating. And that's when I started the Men of Action program. And it's based on principles that I've seen personally that my, 4,000 clients have seen over the last, I started coaching in '08, but I wasn't doing it professionally back then. But my 4,000 clients have seen, I would say, the last 6 years, and then everything that I've tried to glean from different studies on sociology and evolutionary psychology. And I've put that all into a course and tried to help everybody who takes the course, skip 25 years of struggle and heartache and skip to the good part. And so that's what I've done. And so far, it's worked out really well.
I'm gonna ask you a few questions about that. I'm quickly gonna get my coffee. I'll just be less than 1 minute. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thanks. Would you say that you were brought up in a sort of conservative environment um, back in Texas?
In Texas. So it's an interesting question. My grandfather was very much a liberal. He almost to the point of very much. I mean, I wouldn't call him a socialist, but pretty close to that. My grandfather was a very, very much a liberal academic. And then my father was, right of center. I would say right of center. We did go to church, but I wouldn't say it was strict conservatism. And also me growing up in a neighborhood full of minorities and just kind of seeing how the other half lived, I had a lot more empathy for how poverty worked. I worked at this pool in South Dallas called JJ Craft, and I probably saw 4 or 5 shootings while I was there, and it's just kind of a realistic thing where a lot of people are sheltered from that. But when you see it firsthand, then you can kind of understand people's plight.
Do you know what the frustrations were about?
What was shootings? I mean, dudes selling crack. It was in the projects.
I see.
It's Section 8 housing, and yeah, it's just a rough neighborhood. But I mean, I liked it because the people who worked at that pool were like the coolest people. Like I thought they were the coolest people to work with. So I of all the different city pools that I could work at, I like that one the best.
And how was your relationship with women back then?
Uh, so let's say high school, terrible. Like I was always the friend zone. No girl really took me seriously. I talked too much. I would qualify myself too much, especially junior high, high school, just terrible. Then I would say in college, I mean, it's college. I went to a college with 52,000 undergrads. So it was like, yes, at that point, I was meeting women on a semi-regular basis, but it wasn't like I was accomplishing what I wanted. I was just kind of like holding on for dear life half the time. When I started working at a gentleman's club, I have to tell you, I'm not going to tell you, obviously, those aren't the most high class women. I'm fully aware of that. But if you're disillusioned about women, meaning like you've got your beliefs about how to date from the church, Disney, and from big media, from big tech and legacy media, You watch movies like Hitch and you think that that's how you date women. You read books like 50 Shades of Grey, stuff like that. You believe in the 5 love languages. If you're one of those people, then when you work at a gentleman's club, then you come to the realization that none of that shit is true. And, the dynamic between men and women is very different. It's very different than the way it's described. In a lot of ways, it's the reason why it's not described accurately is because it makes men look bad and it makes women look bad. And so that's the reason why it becomes an inconvenient narrative for people to have when you go over, how much men care about youth and beauty and how much women care about men acquiring resources. And when you look at it like that, you find it to be this universal across every culture, then it makes human interactions look shallow. Or like Orion Taraban says, all relationships are transactional, especially in the beginning.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Tell me, the military, did it reinforce a sense of duty and discipline? Was that something you were lacking
Oh
previously?
yeah. Accountability, duty, not so much. I felt a duty to join. I mean, I don't think it reinforced that, but I always felt that. Discipline, yes. I'll tell you what it really helped me with. So I do debates now. I don't do as many as I used to. I used to do several on any topic, like war. Yeah, I've debated flat earthers. I've debated several different people, debated intersexual stuff. I've had several debates like this. And one of the things that I think catches people off guard is how much I'm willing to study, and how much research I'm willing to do before I debate someone. And the reason why was because, when I was a first lieutenant, I was like pretty badly embarrassed. I was supposed to give a briefing on, I want to say, the landing gear or the pneumatic system in a KC-135. And I go up there, there's all these other evaluator navigators in the room, and they were all supposed to like sit there and listen to me. And I could just tell, not disgusted, but they were disappointed because I just barely put in the minimum amount of effort to know what it is that I was talking about. And I was like, I will never, ever experience this feeling again. I will never get caught flat footed or be unprepared. And so from that point on, every time I do a podcast, or I interview someone on my podcast, I do a ton of research. And every time I do a debate, I try to have more data than my opponent.
Um, what made you well, I suppose it was a process, right? To get from, you know, gentleman's club to the military and then into entrepreneurship. Would you consider you're an entrepreneur?
I mean, well, I wouldn't have considered it before until maybe 2019. It's really funny because, my friends, I would say, are guys like, you know, Owen Cook or Bradley or Ty Lopez, or, these are guys that I associate with, or even maybe like Wes Watson, Dan Fleischman, Bilzerian, Ryan Stewman. I mean, I just named a bunch of these guys, Ryan Pineda. These guys are all entrepreneurs, but I really wasn't an entrepreneur. And then poof, I was. And it really is one of those things. It's like the 5 people you surround yourself with. I would surround myself with guys who were successful and not really thinking about it from an entrepreneurial standpoint, but I found myself imitating them as far as the way they. Oh, the great example: Cole Gordon and
Uh-huh.
Jeremy Lee Minor. Those guys, those are sales trainers, and like I started to pattern a lot of things in my business after things they were doing, and then and they were entrepreneurs, and I just it's just one of these things where it's like if you live in a building and you and your neighbors all go to the gym together, and you guys are they're all in really great shape, you're going to get in really great shape as well, just by osmosis. And just by being around them, just by transference. And so I think that's the same thing that kind of happened with me is that, because of the podcast, I started hanging out with people. I'm not, yes, they're pretty financially successful, but they were more like really, really shrewd, incredibly intelligent, really successful entrepreneurs. And I think at least I hope it rubbed off on me to where, we were able to put a lot of those practices in our company.
Can you give us an example of what what was learned naturally
I mean,
through the
I can give a
interactions?
million examples. Yeah. So like this microphone right here, this is the same one that Joe Rogan uses. The background that I have here, a friend of mine used it. This is not, I mean, this is a television behind me. We had a company called On Screen Authority build this whole set for me, right? Um, so I learned that from another friend of mine. The way I do my guests and ask questions, that is a combination of the research I saw Patrick Bet-David doing, and then the open-ended questions, and kind of like the way, I do my podcast kind of leaning into like this. This is Joe Rogan. That's where I kind of got the idea. You also notice I have a very short intro to my podcast. That's also from Joe Rogan. There's like pretty much everything. So our sales funnel is kind of patterned after V shreds. I would say our VSL is kind of like there's a couple of different companies we pattern our VSL after, and then our sales trainers are definitely disciples of Jeremy Lee Minor and Cole Gordon and Jordan Belfort. What else? Yeah, just I've taken a piece from almost every one of those people. Like Ryan's what's his name? Dan Fleischman. Do stuff for other people and then expect nothing in return. Dan Bilzerian. You do as much as you can on social media to show high status with low perceived effort. Learning from just all kinds of different guys. Oh, my buddy, Rich Summers, he runs advertisements to a webinar now. Like these are things, like all these different ideas that I have having dinner with these guys who are geniuses. Like when it comes to business, I've learned so much. And a lot of people think that my course is a dating course. It's not. I pass along a lot of these things that I learned to my clients in the program as well. Teaching guys how to how to host a podcast is also another thing I do. We just released 6 different modules on podcasting. So, just all those different things that I try to pass along that I've learned from guys who are all those guys I just mentioned. I think they're better than me or more successful than me, or at least in some area. Even I forgot Justin Waller too. In some area, they're more successful than me. I do. Brandon Carter too is another guy. I know I'm going to forget a bunch of guys, but all these dudes inspired me, and every single one of them, when I have a question about business, I know I can just reach out to them, and then they're just going to tell me exactly, exactly how they solved this problem that I have as well.
Can I ask? You said that you trained 4,000 people, 4,000 men.
Yes.
If a trans male person would turn up to one of your courses, would you teach them?
It depends if what they needed was aligned with what it is that we were doing. So if a trans is a woman who became a man, I probably am going to say, again, if that person saw what it is our goals were and was in alignment with that, then I definitely would do it. We have had homosexual men be in the course. Cable, he was the first guy to do that. The dude was awesome, and it was really interesting because the social circle aspect it was exactly the same for his community. He was a gay dude that lived in Minneapolis. Was exactly the same for his community as it was for straight guys. So it was interesting. Social proof still worked the same way. Like a lot of the different mechanisms still existed. But yeah, I don't. You talking about born biological female and transition to a man? I would say most likely that we would do that. The only thing is they would have to be in alignment with some of the things that we believe. And one of the issues is why I think someone like that hasn't joined the program previously is because we have a very strong inclination towards evolutionary psychology. And in evolutionary psychology, because it covers the innate sex differences between men and women, it defines 2 genders. Well, someone who's trans might not like that. And that's the only reason why that might be an issue. But it's not something on our end that we'd have a problem with.
Do you believe in the book that was written, I think, by a doctor or psychiatrist, psychologist, Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus?
Yeah, most of that, I think, it's fun to read books like that. And if it helps you to communicate with your partner better, that's great. But I think we pretty much, anybody who's looked at it from a scientific standpoint knows that there's nothing in John Gray's book that's really scientific at all. It's same thing with 5 Love Languages, same thing with anything by Joe Dispenza or Deepak Chopra, same thing with I respect him as an author, really, really interesting books, but The Art of Seduction is not going to help you seduce anyone. The reality situation is there's data on this stuff. My problem isn't that there's things like the 5 Love Languages or Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus. My problem is that. My problem is that since the 1970s, there's been evolutionary psychologists like Tooby and Cosmides, by obviously Dr. Buss, guys like William Costello recently, guys like Jeffrey Wilson or Jeffrey Miller, these incredible evolutionary psychologists who've been actually answering the questions about men and women. And instead of reading these academic papers that could actually help you, people have been reading, for lack of a better term, hokum, like the it's incredible. Like they've been watching movies like Hitch and watching and reading books like what's it called? 50 Shades of Grey. Like nonsense like this.
Sure.
Like 50 Shades of Grey to women is the equivalent to excessive levels of pornography for men. It rots their brain. It makes them believe in things that just aren't real. And so that's the only thing that I would say. It's one of these things where it's like the answers have always been there. Not always, but at least since the 1970s. Maybe Robert Shriver's, they've always been there. And people are choosing just now because of the internet, they're choosing to look and see, hey, things like the five love languages aren't real. Hey, things like men are from Mars, women from Venus is not based in reality.
Uh-huh.
It's the only thing I would say there.
What's real? I mean, are we talking connections with psychology or like Freud or Jung?
No,
Is there any
a lot. I
connection?
mean, Freud is an incredibly smart guy, but a lot of the stuff that he came up with was debunked. Carl Jung, again, these are incredible thinkers, but this is not what I'm talking about. What I'm referring to this is like you have a philosopher and then you have Isaac Newton, right? Was Isaac Newton a philosopher? Maybe, but he has a definitive explanation for gravity, 9.81 meters per second squared. Like we understand how gravity works, and it's an exact objective reality. If I were to survey 17,000 people from different countries, all the way from Norway to like Colombia, all different countries, Africa, Asia, all through Europe, etc. And I were to survey them on certain things, the massive number of people, thousands. Actually, I think in this study it was maybe 30 something thousand people that were surveyed. If I were to do that and I were to consistently see in every single society that women care more about men's ability to procure resources than the other way around, in every society, women wanted men that were taller than them. In every single society, men preferred women who had more looks of youth and symmetry. If I were to find that in every single society, women cared less about a man's body count than the other way around. If I were to find that in every society, that is a truth more so than an estimation that some pop psychologist makes on the internet because they have a feeling about something. And so there's these ultimate truths that exist. For instance, the median man, when surveyed, wants as many sexual partners as the top 1% of women, and men on average have 17 times as much testosterone as women. These are truths. These are objective truths. And so because of that, you just find out a lot of this stuff. And then additionally, there's other data from surveys. These aren't exactly evolutionary psychology, but like Forbes does a survey and finds that 83% of women that are working women would have rather, if possible, chosen to stay at home with their kids if their husband made enough money. Well, that's a very interesting survey. 83% of women said that, when feminists will tell you that no, what women want to do is all work. And the only reason why they were staying at home and taking care of children for the last 200,000 years was only because of the subjugation of men and patriarchy. Well, it turns out that that's not true. You can actually look at data and objectively see that that's not true. So that's another thing. And then you can get into sociological studies. Like, for instance, the pay wage gap is mostly due to the fact that when women give birth and they go on maternity leave for a while, it actually hinders their career pay trajectory. And they've done experiments with lesbian couples and with heterosexual couples, and they compare the lesbian member who did not take care of the child with the man who also did not stay at home to take care of the child, and they find that they have similar career trajectories. And then the same thing with the caretaker female in both of these couples, and they find similar career trajectories, which is what you would not expect if there was a legitimate pay wage gap. The pay wage gap turns out to be a childcare gap. So things like this, these are truths that you can discover if you're willing to look for the data. And a lot of people don't want to because it makes people, some of the findings are disturbing. And sometimes, especially when it comes to things like homicide, one of the most disturbing ones I've ever seen is men who bully in high school have more sexual partners, and women who get bullied in high school have more sexual partners, and men who get bullied in high school have fewer. Like that's a real, it seems obvious when you think about it, but when you really look at that data, doesn't that countermand what a lot of women say about the sensitive man? It's like there's so many things when men are victims of violent crimes. The men that are victims of violent crimes, they show these men these pictures to women of these men who have been attacked, and the men seem less attractive to those women. Women report that these men are less physically attractive. Well, why is that? Well, generally, probably because they were attacked in part because they had fewer masculine features. Again, we go down a really dark path once you start discovering this stuff. But what most of society wants to do is put their head in the sand and pretend like none of this is real. We're all equal. We're all the same. We are equal, but we're not the same, especially not men and women. We are all equal, but we're not the same. And so discussing these differences is very offensive to people. It doesn't make any difference what my answer is. The fact that I'm asking the question is the problem for a lot of people.
And I see also in your book, in your on your website, Men of Action, there's a few books that you recommend, including The Power of Now.
Yes.
The One Thing, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, Ready Player One. Will you be writing a book?
So if I write a book, someone's gonna have to help me. So I have a couple of friends. Obviously, Rollo Tomasi is one of my best friends, and he's on book 6 now. And he's actually mentored me in a lot of things. Like I have a clips channel because of Rollo. There's a bunch of stuff that I've changed because of Rollo. And I will say that if I do write a book, I'm going to need a lot of help from him. I'm probably going to ask Dan for some help. But it would be one of these things where I'm going to sit down and talk almost like to a therapist, and then they transcribe it and then have ChatGPT check all the grammar and then release it like that. Then I'll probably read the audio version. I just don't have the bandwidth to write a book. And every single person that I've talked to who's written one has just told me that it is unless you're just an author who loves doing it and you can't stop writing, it's a very difficult thing to do.
Recently there was an article entitled "My Job at 7,500 Dating Boot Camp: Toxic Masculinity Rules" by I think it was there was a writer that ventures into the dating coach industry. James Bloodworth, he's a journalist. I think he's written a few books as well. What do you make of that title? Because they connect it with the dating coaching industry, with people like Andrew Tate and others, and toxic masculinity. What's your take on that?
One of the things I thought was someone did show me that I thought was extremely disturbing is that they used the show Adolescence on Netflix as almost like a point of proof, a point of evidence. Adolescence is about a middle-class Anglo child who kills one of his classmates. Spoiler alert if you guys haven't seen it. And by the way, it's really well done. Very, very well acted. And the reason why he kills her is because he was exposed to manosphere content, Andrew Tate type of content. So one of the things that happened after that show came out is I went and did some research, and I said, is there any example anywhere in the United Kingdom of a middle-class Anglo child watching red pill content and then going off and committing these acts? And of course, you can probably guess the answer is 0. It has never happened. The show Adolescence is a complete work of fiction. To use it as evidence against someone seems a little bit lazy literary work is the way to do it. The other thing is, I believe there was a mention in the article of I forgot the guy's name. He in Santa Monica, and he killed some people. What was his name? Gosh, I can't remember what the guy's. Elliot Rogers, that was his name. And again, you understand from a literary perspective, one of the laziest things to do is to try to make a correlation when there is none, because you can't find any evidence. Elliot Rogers committed the crimes that he did, and then I believe he took his own life. I forgot if I don't know what the whole story is, but that happened before myself or any of the people mentioned in that article were even on the internet. So to use it, it's one of these things. It's like, we can't really come up with anything. So instead, what we're going to do is just like, it's almost like, have you ever heard, what was there's some theory. It's like when two people are having an argument, the first one who starts invoking the Nazis is the one who loses, right? Because it's like you've gone to the ultimate hyperbole, because there was no real fundamental grasp. And I think the reason why he chose me to write that about was probably because there was a photograph of me and Andrew Tate, and it probably made the cover of his article look a little bit better. There was other things. From my understanding, I read in there, he calls me a sergeant in the military. Richard, you did like minimal research, and I'm pretty sure you figured out that I was an officer in the military. I was a captain. For him to call me a sergeant in the military means that he did the like lowest. The best response I can give for the article is lazy. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like invoking Elliot Rodgers, calling me a sergeant when I'm a captain. Lazy is probably the best way to do it. And then the other part is he was friends with my business partner for 7 years and then just turned his back on them, as well as a few other people, and then used his contacts with me to try to talk to other people like Owen Cook. I have the text messages to show. So to be honest with you, here's the other thing. I understand, because I used to have a PR agency. He obviously hired a PR agency to write the article. He took the article, the PR agency presents it to the Times, and then the Times doesn't do the slightest bit of due diligence on the article and then ends up posting it. And I feel like it's a kind of beneath the Times to do something like that. But I understand, with a liberal bent and with like a blue pill bent, I understand why they would do that. And I get it. Like James Bloodworth is a grifter he has a grift just like anybody else. And he's trying to make his grift off the whole wave of the adolescence, anti-Andrew Tate, anti-red pill stuff. I'm not really red pill. I think anybody who looks at the article with any sort of criticism or scrutiny knows that, like, I've never said the 80-20 rule. That's also invoked in the article. I've never once in my life ever said the 80-20 rule. And so it's one of these things. It's like, I'm trying to think of a good example, but it's like, what city do you live in, Richard?
London.
Okay, you live in London, and because you live in London, I know that there was a riot in London, however many years ago. Therefore, because you live in London, and then there was a crime committed, therefore I'm going to associate you with the crime when there's no other connection. Like, that's about the level of literary integrity that's in that whole thing. So I think the best word is disappointing. I'll be honest with you. I went and looked up I tried to find the article and I couldn't even find it. I had to look up the exact title of it in order to find it. So either the Times is not doing well as far as SEO is concerned, or not a whole lot of people looked at it. But I kind of wish somebody had. One of my good friends is Owen Cook. Do you know who Owen Cook is? He owns Real Social Dynamics. Okay. He used to own Real Social Dynamics. Right. I think so. If there's a book by Neil Strauss called The Game that was written back in it was written in 2000, but it came out, I believe, in 2005. I believe that's when it came out. But he started writing it back in 2000. And I know Neil. And in the book, the protagonist or the antagonist at the end of the book is a guy named Tyler Durden, whose real name is Owen Cook. And Owen Cook is one of my best friends. And one of the things that happened that I think Neil didn't expect was that Owen Cook then went on YouTube and told his side of the story. And I don't think that Neil thought that Owen would ever have a voice as big as he did. And so I think that's one of the issues that's happening. I think that's maybe what the author of this article was trying to do with me, which is, try to maybe get some level of fame in a similar way. I don't know, but, wish them nothing but the best of luck. But I really do hope, for the Time's sake, that they do a little bit better job of researching, like get something right. They said that I put $100 bill in my billfold. I've never carried cash. I don't carry any. I mean, these are just blatant lies. It was another one. It was absurd. It said that I photoshopped the trapezius muscles on my neck. And I was just like, well, then there should be at least one photo of me doing such a thing. But the only thing is, like, if I Photoshop my trapezius muscles, I would look like this. It just doesn't make any sense. So, kind of literary laziness is probably the best way I would say it. But,
were you contacted?
Of course not. I mean, why would they didn't get anything. You think if they contacted me and it says on my Instagram, Captain Michael Sartain, that they wouldn't have called me a sergeant, right?
I see. Do you think I could call you back in 5 minutes?
Yeah, for sure.
And then
yeah, absolutely.
For about 10-15. I've got a few more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Questions. I'll send you a separate email. Thanks, Michael. Thanks.
Wait, talk in 5 minutes. What do you mean separate email?
We could use the same link, right?
Yeah, let's just. Well, no, I'm just curious. What is it that you? Oh, because you need to start over.
I've got the 40-minute limit.
Oh, got it. Okay, got it. I didn't understand what you're talking about. Okay, yeah, you probably have to send me a different link.
Yes, I'll do that.
Okay, send it to me right now. Thank you.
Cheers. In about 5. This podcast is sponsored by Camera Museum of London and Tang Cigars at 44 Museum Street, London. Thank you for listening to a Fish Out of Water podcast. This is your host, Richard Lipman. Should you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please get in touch.